Dear students, hope you all are doing well. So today let us start with your fourth paper, which is Micropaleontology and Oceanography. Okay, we will begin with the syllabus first. So you have 4 units in this syllabus. The unit 1 has definition and scope of the subject. What is the definition of micropaleontology and what does oceanography means, and what is the application and scope of this subject, that why are we studying these subjects. Then, like you take samples in the earth surface, you take various geological samples. Likewise, you can take samples in the ocean also. Okay, so we will study about the topography of the ocean and how the samples are taken in the surface of the ocean, that means the bed of the ocean, and the subsurface, and what are the techniques of the sampling and how are the samples then processed. Then coming to unit 2, we will understand that how did oceanography develop, where did this thought came to study the ocean. Okay, we will study the history of development of oceanography, and then we will understand the methods of measuring properties of seawater. How do we know which kind of properties does seawater has? Everybody knows it is saline, but is it the only thing it is, or how dense it is, what is its temperature, is it cooler in the surface, hotter in the depth, or vice versa? We will study all this, and we will also understand how we measure these properties. Then, to understand oceanography, there were various programs taken up. These programs are included within the Oceaneering program. We will study in detail about this. NCPOAR in Goa is a leading institute which is taking up these programs. We will understand about how these ocean dealing programs are undergoing and what are its major accomplishments. Why do they do it? What result do they get, and how is it significant? Then coming to the unit 3, we will understand the circulation of water in the ocean. Is the surface water different? How does it circulate? How does the deeper water circulates? And are there different layers within the ocean water? If yes, then do they get mixed? Okay, so there are different layers. How do they get mixed due to circulation or upwelling? And we will also understand thermocline, pycnocline, like you have geotherm on the surface of the terrestrial part of the earth. Likewise, you have thermocline in the oceans. We will understand about this. And when you hear of global warming, along with that you also understand a few words like El Nino, La Nina. I hope you all have heard these. If not, then we will understand about this also. And deep ocean circulation. Then we will also understand that how different life forms exist within the oceans and how these life forms go side by side along with the sediments that are present in the ocean. Are the sediments of the ocean made of the skeletons of these microorganisms, or what is the case? So there is a word known as ooze, and there are many other words also which we take for sea sediments like pelagic sediments. We will understand about this in detail in unit 3. Then in unit 4, you will get introduced to detailed morphology, geological distribution, evolution and application of various microfossils. Microfossils are those fossils which cannot be seen with naked eye. We need to see them under a microscope. Okay, it has nothing to do with 10 to the power of -6. So there are different microfossils that you have to study. They are foraminiferas, ostracoda, calcareous nanofossils, radiolaria, diatoms, and conodonts. Within the ocean, there are various microfossils. We will study the relationship of the microfossils in reference to the ocean and also understand complete oceanography within these 3 units. Okay, so this is the syllabus that you have, and there are various books that are suggested to you for understanding marine micropaleontology. You have to refer Bilalul Haq's book. I will provide you with the soft copy. Then Elements of Micropaleontology by Pignot, I will provide you with all these. Applied Geological Micropaleontology and Oceanography by Pinnett. I've already uploaded Oceanography by Pinnett for you. So kindly download it. We will use this book. Let us start with Unit 1 then. So we will discuss definition and scope of the subject first. For this presentation, I've used various sources, various books and various internet sources. Coming to the definition of micropaleontology first. You already know what paleontology is. Paleos means ancient, ontos means life, logos means study. Micro means seen under the microscope. So micropaleontology is ancient life's study which can be done under the microscope. Okay, it is a branch of paleontology. And here we study the various morphology and characteristic details and application of the microfossils. Whereas oceanography, it comes from the Greek word okeanos, who was the titan of the son of Uranus. Graphia means recording and describing. So we are going to understand what ocean is all about. We will include various disciplines of science, be it physics, be it chemistry, be it geology, okay, to understand what oceans are all about. So this is the science which deals with the oceans and include the delimitation of their extent, depth, physics, chemistry of water, marine biology, climate and exploitation of the resources, because various resources are present in the ocean also. We have already studied in various classes earlier. Even I have told you many a times that at MORB, mid-oceanic ridge, what do you get? At the mid-oceanic ridges, you get ophiolites there, which are rich in minerals, okay, economic minerals. You get manganese nodules. You have studied these in economic geology when you were in BSc. So oceans are rich in minerals. So in this view also, they are very important to be studied. So now we know what micropaleontology is, what oceanography is. So we have the definitions of both the subjects here. Let us recall major oceans of the earth. There are various various oceans. Major are Arctic, Atlantic, Antarctic, Indian and Pacific oceans. So as assignment, you should start preparing with maps also. Okay, make a map showing various oceans and various continents, and likewise I'll give you the assignment in Word also. So you start doing it. If we see this geostat image, we'll study remote sensing. In that you will understand the details that how these images are got. So if we see this in the geosat image, the ocean floor's topography is fairly visible. The red color shows the continental margins. Mainly they are comparatively lower depths, okay, and these are the continental parts. Here you can see the mid-oceanic ridges. These are the mid-oceanic ridges, and these are the major fractures associated with mid-oceanic ridges. We will see some of the similar photographs in the coming slides. Okay, so a major part of the world is covered with oceans. It is needless to tell, already you must be knowing it. So if we talk about continental margins, the area, the transitional area which joins the continents to the oceans, where the continent meets the ocean is known as the continental margin. Okay, so if we go from this point A to point B, this part is the continental margin, the continental shelf, slope and continental rise. Okay, this part is the continental margin. Just after the continental rise, the place from where continent starts rising, just after the continental rise, the continental margin begins. After this, the deep ocean basin comes. Okay, so here is the deep ocean basin. Till here, shelf, slope, continental rise, this is the continental margin. Then comes the deep oceanic basin, and then the mid-oceanic ridges, then again same deep ocean basin and the continental margin. Okay, so there are various continental margins. Here subduction is taking place. So this is passive continental margin. Here subduction is taking place. So here the continental margin will be active. We will understand this in the coming slides. So in general, if we speak, then coming from the old mountains, alluvial plains to the beaches comes the continental shelf, then continental slope, then rise. Then comes the abyssal plain, the deep ocean. Okay, so this is the continental marginal part. I just said about passive margin. Passive margin are those areas which do not have any plate boundaries. This is a passive margin. Okay, with the continental shelf, slope, rise and slowly abyssal plain. There are no two different plates here. So this is a continental margin where continental crust joins with the oceanic crust. Whereas what are the active margins? I just showed you in the previous slide. These active margins are those areas where one plate undergoes underneath the another plate, and these plates, they create a kind of trench here. Okay, so these are active margins where plates are actively participating. Here the plates are not participating actively, so these are passive margins. So along the active margin you get the accretionary wedge. All that is present here gets scratched up and it comes up here in the form of accretionary wedge. You have already studied this, and you will also study this in geodynamics. I have already told you a lot about accretionary wedges. And then going away from here, you get the continental volcanic arc, which is formed due to partial melting of the subducting oceanic lithosphere. Okay, so here you get the mixed andesitic volcanism. Similar condition is here in the Himalayan region, where presently we are getting the accreted part and these volcanic arcs and all that. No water is present. So earlier there was Tethys Sea here between Eurasia, India. Here was a Tethys Sea which slowly has finished up. So this used to be active margin some time back in the around 65 ME. Okay, and much before that, when India was part of Rhodania, then the northern margin of the Indian subcontinent used to be a passive margin. Okay, so we just understood what trenches are. These are the major trenches found in the earth. Okay, Peru-Chile Trench, Middle American Trench, Cascadia Subduction Trench, Aleutian Trench, Kuri Trench. Among these, Mariana Trench is the deepest trench of the world. Okay, going away from the continental ridges, continental margins, we know there are mid-oceanic ridges. So these are various mid-oceanic ridges: Mid-Atlantic Ridge, East Pacific Rise, Mid-Indian Ridge. So here you have this reunion hotspot also. You have a triple junction here. It is said that India was moving towards Eurasia and it passed through this hotspot, and due to which the Cretaceous volcanism of Deccan is got here in this region. We have already studied all this. Okay, so other than these features, the mid-oceanic ridges also have fracture zones. We saw in the earlier slide. So there are various fracture zones also. We may get rift valleys. A picture is showing here. And we may get ophiolite sequences with different layers, with gabbro at the top, pyroxenite at the base, and there are many more layers here. You have studied this, and you will study a great detail in geodynamics also. So we get various rocks associated with ophiolites here. Okay, and then there are some geomorphic features also, like guyots and seamounts. There are islands, the areas surrounded by water. If these islands they get eroded due to wave erosion, they form guyots. Okay, so it is something like this. They may represent various volcanoes also. Yeah, so we get similar conditions in the Andaman Nicobar Islands also. And you may also get reefs and atolls. You must be knowing about the Hawaiian chain of the volcanoes. The plate is moving away from the hotspot. When it moves away from the hotspot, this part used to be over this at around 3.8 MA. So it is moving, and as it is moving over this plume, it is getting various volcanoes. Okay, these volcanoes are usually seen like this because nutrient rich material is brought from underneath. This nutrient rich material gives rise to an environment in which various organisms can thrive. We get various coral reefs here which surround the volcanoes. So they are fringing around the volcanoes. They are known as fringing coral reefs. And due to various reasons, when these get subsided, we get barrier reefs like this, and then slowly they change into lagoon due to plate tectonics. Okay, so these are various features that we get in the oceans. So we studied about continental margin. Let me revise from the first. We'll go through it very fast. We studied the definition of micropaleontology, what is oceanography, major oceans of the earth. We saw what continental margin is. Then we understood how various names are given within the continental margin: the slope, the shelf, the continental rise, the basal plain. Then we understood what passive margin is. Then we understood what active margin is. Then we saw what are the various features we find in the active margins, or the features which are related to plate tectonics. Then we understood what mid-oceanic ridges, various fracture zones, various rifts, valleys, and various ophiolite sequences can be found there, and various guyots, seamounts, reefs, atoll can be seen here. Okay, so the first part, the definition and the scope, we dealt with this in this unit. Thank you. You please ask questions wherever you're finding any difficulty, and also you can tell me if you want to change anything. I mean, if it is alright for you to study the way I'm teaching, or you need some changes. Okay, so besides this, I want to discuss with you the book which I have sent. It is a book, Invitation to Oceanography, written by Paul R. Pinnett, P.R. Pinnett. Okay, so he is the author here. I have uploaded this book for you. So within this book, I'll very fast go to the content here. You can see in the first chapter the growth of oceanography, the history of oceanography, how we started studying oceanography, and various planet Oceanus. This is a very introductory chapter. Then what are ocean basins, how are the marine sediments, what are the properties of seawater, how wind and ocean circulation occur, what are kind of waves in the ocean, how tides occur, what is the marine ecology, biological productivity in the ocean, the dynamics shore of the sea, the coastal habitats, ocean habitats, their biota, the ocean resources, the human presence in the ocean, and the global climate change and the oceans. So your micropaleontology and oceanography paper completely will be covered by this book. So we will make this book the major reference book, and other than this also I'll give you 2 more books, but this will be the major book which we will keep considering all the time. Okay, so let us just take a overview of this book. You can see how colorful figures are here, so it will be easy for you to understand. Some people have the tendency of reading the preface also. I do that. I don't know how you do it, but one should try reading the prefaces also, because the people who write these books, they give a lot of effort in this. So the history of oceanography, it is here. Then how oceanography includes biology, chemistry, geology, physics, all the subject together come and let us understand what oceanography is. I'll use various figures from this book to make you understand. Okay, and then how are the major oceans, and what is the history of the oceanography. We will use this book only to study it, so keep it as a reference, and while I'm teaching you can even highlight these parts which while seeing the lecture. Okay, then you are also told about various hypotheses which were brought forward. Then origin of ocean basins, how basins are made, what is continental drift, which we were discussing earlier, that Rodinia was during Rodinia breakup, the northern Indian margin was a continental margin. I told you, passive continental margin. And these fractures, how do they form? So it includes a major part of geodynamics also, because once you don't know it, you won't be able to understand the sediments of the ocean, because all these sediments which represent various geomagnetic polarity reversals also are present within the oceanic regime. Okay, the mid-oceanic sediments, they contain the sediments which have the reprints of geomagnetic polarity. We study all this in we have studied, I think, in magnetostratigraphy. Yes, we have studied this, so you will get an overview of this also here. Then global plate tectonics is also discussed. With reference to global plate tectonics, various features which we get in the ocean surface, these are seen here. You can read it in thoroughly. Okay, there are various beautiful photographs which will make you excited about studying this, and this was the example of Hawaiian mountains which I was giving. A similar diagram is shown here also. Within various plate tectonic regimes, how the ocean behaves, because it is not that once you are studying oceanography and mineralogy, you just wind your mind and just study only this and stop understanding how continents are behaving, because they go side by side. It's not that the plates are only working for the continents and not for the ocean. Okay, so you have to keep your mind open and understand it in this reference. So you can study about the plate tectonics and related oceanography here. We'll study about all this. It's not that only you have to study it. We'll study this. And then marine sedimentation, how are the sediments present in the ocean? Are they fossiliferous? You have studied this in sedimentology, how transportation, deposition of the sediments takes place, how we take samples. Okay, this is a part of unit 1, how we take samples, how various samples are taken, how coring is done, how these samples are processed, how sedimentation occurs within the continental shelf. Okay, how circulation of deep sea and surface water takes place, what kind of sediments do we find here. Then you must be remembering the BOMA sequence we used to study in sedimentology. So everything is actually interrelated in sedimentology and geology. And then while you are studying oceanography, you will also have to understand chemistry and physics, right? So how continental slope reefs are there. If you see the sedimentological part, where you should go and take course, how you should go for geophysical analysis, how you should go for geochemical analysis. Okay, so these are discussed in this chapter here. And then moving ahead into another chapter, because it will take a lot of time, so I will decrease the size here. So you have all the books, you can see it very easily. So how sediments are there, how atolls are formed, how reefs are formed. I'll give you simple examples through which you can understand. You will also see how various fossils are found in this region. What are biogenic oozes? Okay, in the next lecture I'll teach you about that. How do forams look? There are different kinds of forams. There are different kinds of pteropods, radiolarias, coccolithophores, diatoms. What are these? We will study in detail about these and how these are useful for us. Okay, there are various regions where these can be found, and there are various nodules which are found in the surface of the sea. How these nodules are formed and how these nodules are useful to us, we will study about all this. And then see calcareous ooze, siliceous ooze. In unit 3 you will see that word use, ooze. So it is here. And the continental shelf deposits and terrigenous sediments. Within the ocean there are various regions where different types of sediments are found. We will study about this because we have to find the microfossils within these sediments only. Okay, in the mid-oceanic ridge also, as you go away from the center, how the ooze changes, and does it contains microfossils or not, and what is carbonate composition compensation depth, the CCD, and how a basin dries. There are many things which you will get here. Okay, so again I'll decrease the size so that we go fast here. The next will be the properties of seawater. The seawater is saline, it is dense, and how it behaves in the surface, how it behaves in the depth, how oxygen and hydrogen combine to form water, and how this water combines with various other elements. What is its behavior, how it behaves as a universal solvent, what are the salts that mix with it, and how the changes of water composition takes place. What are the solutes here? There are various numericals also that you can study. These will be useful in NET. This comes in your NET exam. Many things are highlighted also. How the samples are taken. See in this chapter all this is written in detail. And then how the composition varies and what effects are there in salinity due to density, and how it is related to temperature also. Okay, how it is related to temperature also. You will study about this in all detail. So this book is very useful in terms of studying for your classes also, and also for NET exam. Okay, so because while studying MSc you have to prepare for NET exams also. So how various features are seen, that is shown here. Coming to the next chapter, you have the circulation, water circulation, how water circulates. Okay, there are various criteria of circulation due to wave also, and due to the effect of wind also. How geothermobarometry is done, how pycnocline and thermocline are measured. So you please go through this book. So I've given you just an example to first scroll the book, see all the figures and the major highlights that are present here. Go through this book, and we will use this book while studying in the further classes. Okay, so I hope this much is enough for today. Thank you.